Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. I love nerding out on cameras and lenses and different film stocks as much as the next person, but if you want to better your photography, there's no better way to do it than by studying some of the photographers that really inspire you. So today I've got a few books here that I want to talk about. These are just a few recent photo book pickups from the last few months, books that I think you should at least consider adding to your collection, and this is probably the last time we're going to do one of these videos here in my dining room at home. I'm really close to moving into my new office space in town, so I figured one last time before we do all that, I figured we would sit down, go through some books that I think you should consider picking up. The first book I want to talk about is Fred Herzog's Modern Color. This is a book that I picked up not that long ago. It was actually right after he passed away. There have been several of the greats of photography that have passed away recently, which is really sad to see, but I picked this book up because as I was seeing all the posts about his work whenever he passed, I realized I still hadn't had any of his books in my collection, so I picked up Modern Color, which is sort of a retrospective. There's a lot of work from the 50s and 60s, as well as the 70s and 80s, and even into the early 2000s as well, which is kind of interesting because you start to see how color played such an important role in his work, but at the same time how that color changed, whether it be on the buildings that he would shoot, around the city. He did a lot of work in Vancouver, but also just in the signage and things like that. And it really just kind of made me think, when you have something like that that plays such a big part in your photography, as that thing continues to evolve over time, you sort of have to evolve with it. So it's just interesting. This has been a really good book that's just kind of been good food for thought. I've been thinking and talking a lot about color in my own work. There was a video I did on consistency where I just kind of talked about where color, works for me and where it doesn't, and just my thoughts on all of that. So this was a very fitting book for that time, and just me kind of answering all of these questions in my head and studying it and thinking about it. So Fred Herzog's Modern Color, he's just an amazing photographer. His use of color was great, but if you're not already familiar with Fred Herzog's work, this would be a great introduction. The next book I want to talk about is Tiny, Streetwise Revisited by Mary Ellen Mark. This is probably one of her more famous bodies of work, and this book in particular was actually one of the last books that was published before she passed away in 2015. Mary Ellen Mark is by far one of the greatest storytellers in the world of photography, in my opinion. She does amazing work, very great documentary work. This book in particular is heartbreaking, it's heavy, but it's extremely inspiring, and the biggest takeaway that I think people can learn from in this book is this idea of trust in the photographer. The subject has to be able to trust the photographer in some really vulnerable situations, and that's never been more clear than in this book here. There are a lot of really heavy and vulnerable moments that Mary Ellen Mark is there with her camera, and the trust between the subject and the photographer can't be understated. I think that just speaks volumes about the photographer and the person, more than anything, the person that Mary Ellen Mark was. The fact that she was able to make these photos in these kind of situations, knowing that the subjects had full trust in her, it definitely speaks volumes. This is definitely a book that I think anybody can appreciate, whether you are a documentary photographer, a street photographer, just any photographer at all. Seeing the kind of relationship between the photographer and subject in this book, I think, is something that anybody can relate to and really learn from. Before we take a look at the last book, I do want to take a minute to pay some bills and thank our sponsor today, which is Squarespace. I've personally been using Squarespace for my own website, and I've been recommending it to people for years, long before they ever actually became a sponsor of the channel, because their service is that good. They have tons of templates to choose from that all look great, and it's extremely easy to use, but even if you do run into an issue, they have award-winning 24/7 customer service that's always willing to help. If you'd like to try a free trial of Squarespace, you can do so at squarespace.com, but if you want to get signed up, I can save you 10% off your first purchase if you sign up at squarespace.com/mattday. The final book I want to talk about today is Somewhere Along the Line by Joshua Dudley Greer. This book for me has been a very slow burn in the best way possible. If you're interested in any kind of travel across America, road trip photography, this is definitely a book that is going to be right up your alley, but his book itself, it just really has been a slow burn because I've really taken my time with it. I've flipped through it from front to back a couple of times, but I've really taken my time with this book. I've had it for a couple of months, but the work itself, there's something about it that just, for me, I can't really just take a quick glance at it. I have to really study the entire frame. There are a lot of really subtle things that at first nothing really jumps out at you. You know, some books you can flip through it, and as soon as you flip a book, it's just like, oh man, that's so strong, that's powerful. This is a very subtle book in a lot of ways. There are some photos where it immediately grabs you and you think, what the hell is going on? But at the same time, there are some photos in here that for me, it takes a minute. You know, you might just take a quick glance and think, there's nothing there. That's just a photo of nothing. But the longer you stare at the photo, the more you study every little aspect of the frame, more things start revealing themselves, and it just kind of brings you to a point where you feel like you're looking at something familiar. You feel like this is just such a normal, boring, mundane, everyday kind of moment or scene, but there's something about it in the way that he composes things, or maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's the whole body of work as a whole, where some photos there's a lot going on and you wonder what's going on, and then the next frame there's just nothing. And that's sort of how it would be if you were traveling across the states. There's a lot of interesting things and then maybe not so interesting things, but it's been a really good book for me to just kind of take my time with and really study at a slow pace and not rush through it. So this is definitely a book for those people that if you're interested in travel or road trip photography, that kind of stuff, I think you'll appreciate it. But regardless, just really spending time with this book has made me think a lot about my own work, and you know, as I'm composing things, or if I'm just looking for things to shoot, am I looking for something that's just gonna immediately grab people right off the bat? Or am I passing over things that, you know, maybe have more to say or more to reveal the longer you really look at it? And, you know, maybe this idea of a slow burn as I'm, you know, flipping through and studying someone else's work, can I apply that to my own photography as well as I'm out shooting? Should I slow down while I'm out shooting and looking for scenes? So it's been an interesting book for me. I've really enjoyed just taking my time with it. So I hope you guys are interested in doing the same thing as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video today, as well as the photos and just my thoughts on these books as well. To me, that's one of the most interesting things about studying photo books, is hearing other photographers' takes as well, because sometimes there's a photographer that everybody loves and maybe I don't see what it is about it. And other people might look at some of my favorite photographers and think, what's so great about that? Why are you so inspired by that? I don't see anything there. But that's, to me, that's what's so interesting about it, and I'm always willing to revisit other photographers and try to understand what it is that makes them so great. And I've done that with photographers in the past that for years I just didn't get it, and then as I took my time with it and really gave it the time it deserved, then I start to see things. So, you know, rather than poring over spec sheets or looking up different hashtags for certain film cameras or film stocks on Instagram, take time to study other photographers' work, whether they have a book or not. If you need to go to their website or their Instagram feed, just focus on the work, focus on the photos that really inspire you, and try to understand what it is that really inspires you about it, because that's the kind of stuff you can apply to your own work. So just focus more on that. If you're interested in picking up any of these books, I will have links in the description. Also, just a heads up in case you're unaware, the new schedule here for the YouTube channel is every Monday at 8 a.m. and other videos sprinkled in there throughout the week whenever I get a chance to. But that's it for today. So I'd obviously love to hear your guys' thoughts on these photos and everything that we talked about today in the comments down below. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.